Today I'm going to make a dish called Gamjatang. It's a Korean dish. It's very dear to my heart. They use the Korean word for tang, which is one of their many, many words for soup. They get this one from Chinese, and in Korean they use it to mean something like a thick, hearty stew. In Korea, Gamjatang is called Hangover Soup because it's thick, it's fatty, it's got a little bit of spiciness to it, it's salty, it's great for when you have a hangover. Now, there's a little bit of confusion about Gamjatang because gamja is the word for potato, and Gamjatang has potatoes in it, so people think it's potato soup. In fact, in Korea, there is another meaning of the word gamja, and that is the spine of a pig, or the vertebra of the pig, and that's where this soup actually gets its name. To make this soup, we're going to need pork spine. Now, if you can't find pork spine, you want something else with bones, so ribs would work. Something fairly tender. If you know a butcher, you can readily get pork spine. If you don't know a butcher, you can try an Asian market. If none of those things work, then use ribs. But basically, what we want is the bone, the marrow, we want some of the nervous system in here, we want the meat that's really tender right next to the bone with lots of tendons, and we're going to boil this until it falls off the bone. So we don't really care about the fact that they've just chopped these bones basically into quarters or something. We're also going to need a lot of other ingredients, but right now I'm just starting this out, and we're going to need potatoes, onion, garlic, and boiling water. Later on we'll add other things, but right now we're going to start this off and then let it boil down for a few hours, and I'll come back and go over the other things. So first we want to brown our meat. I've taken the meat and I've dried it with paper towels, so it's going to brown up on the outside real nice. You want to brown the outside of the meat so that when it's boiling, the water inside can't escape, so your meat doesn't dry out. So I'm going to turn on my pan, get a little bit of oil. I've got a little bit of sesame oil in here, but this is pretty fatty pork, so we don't need that much to prevent it from burning. Alright, now we're just going to carefully put some of these in, and most pieces have a bone side and a meat side, and we really want to get the meat side to be brown, so we're going to put that face down to make sure it has a good brown coating on it. Obviously, I have a lot of meat. I have 3 pounds of meat, actually almost 3.5, and I have a very small pan, so I'm just going to do 3-4 pieces at a time, making sure to move it after it a little bit so that it doesn't get stuck to the bottom. I got 1 moving, 2 moving, 3 moving. This one's still kind of stuck, so I'm going to get some oil around it. It'll release. When meat is done, it will release from the pan. Turn them, flip them around. We're cooking on high heat just to get a nice brown side on every piece of meat. All sides. And as I said, it released. We have a nice brown side. See the browning? It's going to taste really good. The smaller pieces will cook faster. When they're done, we're going to put them into the pot. Alright, now this little piece, we can still see some red. And you think that red's not done. That's the marrow. That's actually the bone. We want that to seep out into the soup, so we don't really care. This piece is done. We can put it in boiling water now. Now you may think that this is very difficult, all these really big pieces and trying to get them all perfectly brown, but don't worry, all the meat is eventually going to fall off the bone anyway. We're just trying to give it a little head start and a little bit of flavor from the browning. So if you screw it up, don't worry. Just try not to burn anything. Alright, we now have our last pieces of meat. The largest ones are finally done. We're putting them in the pot. Putting everything in the pot. We can get rid of this. We can move our pot very carefully onto our front burner. Not important unless you're trying to make a movie. Now, to add to this pot, we're going to want a little bit of ginger. You can just keep it in a whole hunk. It won't disintegrate. We're going to want some garlic cloves. To get them to disintegrate as fast as possible, we're going to want to mash them just once with the side of a knife and throw them in. Maybe need 5 cloves, 6 cloves for amount of meat this big. They should completely disintegrate after boiling. There will be nothing left of them but their flavor. And then I have half of an onion chopped up. These will almost disintegrate. The potatoes, for one thing, we don't have enough room in our pot right now. For another thing, if we're going to cook this a long time, after potatoes are cooked, they'll last for another hour in your soup, but they will slowly turn to mush, and eventually they will completely disintegrate. So I'm going to wait until this cooks down a bit, and then I'm going to add my potatoes. So bring this to a boil, turn it way down, put the top on it, leave it for 2 hours. No problem. Come back, add water as you need to, make sure it's not burning, but really you can go do something else. In terms of other ingredients that we're going to need, the most important other ingredient that we have is wild sesame seed, or perilla seed. In Chinese, this would be zutsu. In Japanese, this would be shiso. In Korean, it's 들깨Deulggae. This is the seed of perilla, which is related to the mint family. It's a mild anise flavor, and it's going to cover up some of the fattiness in this pork soup that would otherwise overpower the stew. You can find this, and most commonly you'll find it at a Korean grocer, and it'll be listed as wild sesame or black sesame, despite the fact that it is not at all related to sesame. Also to add, we're going to add some fresh perilla leaves. You can tell a perilla leaf, usually it's big and wide, and it has this razor kind of cookie cutter shape on the outside. Now, perilla is, as the Chinese say, it's actually not a food, it's a herbal medicine. And they say it's really good for your immune system and really great for the common cold. So besides this soup's hangover fighting capability, it'll also fight, the common cold, or really anything that gives you sort of that feeling in your head of unpleasantness. And these perilla leaves, again, in a lot of places are called sesame leaves, despite the fact that they have nothing to do with sesame. Now back to more normal ingredients, we're going to want some sort of green chili. I have here jalapeno, but longer serrano peppers might be better. We're going to want some shoestring mushrooms, a little bit of green onion, really don't need much. Red pepper if you like it spicy, some form of salt, maybe some fish sauce to give it a little bit more flavor. And then if you have it, a bean paste. Now this is gochujang. It's fermented red pepper and bean paste, and this is doenjang, which is just bean paste. That's been fermented. Either one of them will do. A spoonful or two will bring another complexity to the flavor of this soup. If you can't find them, they're not essential, but I'm going to add some. Alright, here we are after 2 hours. We've got a slow boil going. And if you look at some of these pieces of meat, if you just poke them, the meat just falls off the bone. If you want, you can take the pieces out, let them cool a little bit, take the meat off, take the bones out. The bones are essentially useless now. They've given their flavor, and now we have this nice white soup that is just full of deliciousness. It's full of the marrow and the proteins from the tendons that have been cooked down. So we want to start adding our potatoes because they need to cook. And while they're cooking, we'll add a few other things that will make this taste a little bit better. Alright, get the potatoes below the level of the soup, recover, let them cook. It shouldn't take too long for them to cook. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to add is going to be these jalapenos. Just throw them in. They'll discolor a little bit, but we need to get some of that flavor in. Then I'm going to add some of this gochujang. Get it to spin out. This will also make the soup very, very red. So I'm going to put a big spoonful in. Should be enough. And because I'm going to cook this down some more, I don't really need to stir it in. It'll eventually get all mixed around. Just need to clean the spoon off. Then I like my soup to be spicy, so I'm going to add a little bit of red pepper. And why not? A little bit of black pepper will also be nice. Not too much. Then the zutsu, or the ter깨Deulggae, the perilla seed. Now I like to add a lot of this. It has a very, very mild flavor, and it adds a little bit of crunch because these seeds are actually hollow, and so adding a lot of them will give the soup a different texture, a little bit of crunchiness. But right now we really just want flavor. You can add more later. Now, the perilla leaves we won't put in it until right before we serve. We won't put in the sushi mushrooms until right before we serve, and we're going to chop up the onion and put them in right before we serve. Salt-wise, you want to put in also shortly before you serve. If you put too much salt in here, you're likely to dry out the meat. So we're just going to let this all stew together for another half an hour or so. Our potatoes will be done, and then we'll all be ready to eat. Alright, to salt this, we're going to want to be able to taste it. Just see how salty it is already. If we've added some kimchi or some of the sesame paste has salt in it, fish sauce, whatever. And this is fairly salty, but it's going to need some more. So I'm going to add just about a spoonful of fish sauce. And then I'm going to finish it off with salt. Potatoes take a lot of salt. Mine's fairly salty, so it's much better. Alright, we're almost done. This is cooked for another half an hour. We're just going to throw in our mushrooms. If you wanted to add something else, you could add some cabbage, some Napa cabbage, Chinese cabbage. Or if you don't have that and you have some kimchi, you can add some kimchi. You can add some mung beans for some crunchiness. Add our green onion. And then add our perilla leaves. Stir them around a bit, and these just need to cook for 5 minutes and then ready to serve. Serve with rice. And you'll need a little bowl if you have left the bones in to give people, so that they can not leave them on their plate. Overall, delicious meal.